Welcome everyone to my Wednesday chess stream. Weird Wednesday, unusual openings, blitz and classical here on lichess and Twitch. Welcome peoples. How is everyone? It's Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock CEST. I hope everybody's well. We're going to play some unusual openings here. Not entirely out of hand, but creative stuff we don't normally play. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Twitch chat and to lichess. We'll see if the stream is up and running here in a minute. Ninju challenges me. We've got Andrea, Hunt the King, and Ninju. Guys, don't forget that I'm playing unusual openings today. You're welcome to do the same. By unusual, I don't mean it has to be like extremely unsound. We can play gambits of various varieties, openings we just normally don't play. Stuff that's a little bit marginal, a little bit less mainline. Let me check my my Twitch stream. I think we're up on lichess, but I don't see if we're running on Twitch yet. But my OBS looks okay at the moment. Good morning, Saronche. I needed to wake up my Twitch stream there. It looks okay. So we are good. Good to see you this morning, sir, and ladies and gentlemen, and everybody. Unusual opening Wednesday stream. A little bit of fun we can have once a week. We try to have fun every day, but it's a little more serious on the other days. So we're going to get started. Andreas first. All right, it's 8-3 classical. If anybody wants to challenge me, you can challenge me to blitz or classical chess. Anything between 5 minutes and 8 minutes with a 3 to 5 second increment, something in that range. With 8-3 being the maximum time control and 5-3 being the minimum time control. Andreas first. All right, let's get started. We are white. Alright, we're going to play e4 and see what happens. Now, Andrea plays unusual openings already. E4, A6. Okay, so this has a special place in my heart. I have played A6 quite a bit more than the average bear. I have played it in probably about 10 tournament games with black. And the majority of those were against decent masters. So Against this opening, I'm not going to try to play anything bizarre. I mean, we already are in an unusual opening, so I'm going to try to play the best I can against one of my own favorites, the St. George defense. Now, normally the intention is to play b5. That doesn't mean you have to play it right away. I guess black can delay it with e6 here. You could also play c5 to reach some kind of... I guess you could play c5. There may be some technical problem with it, but you could play c5. Don't do this in one of my simuls, or I'll get angry. I was angry with one of our players. I lost to a really bizarre opening on Sunday, but in a unusual opening stream, I don't mind if you play something experimental. So h5, this is not a good move. Black is weakening the king side. h6 would be kind of like a Bassmania thing, but Michael Bassman, international master from England, specialist in unusual and extreme openings. I don't know if he's still playing actively. He's getting pretty up in years. Okay, so h5. I've talked about this before. I often play h5 like when I'm kind of trying to give my opponents sort of odds and challenge myself, to handicap myself, because h-pawn moves don't weaken the position as much as other like weakening pawn moves. You can play like 1h5 and it doesn't really weaken your position that much. It only weakens one square rather than two in most instances. So h5 isn't all that bad, but it doesn't contribute very much to black's position constructively, and that's the bigger problem here. Not that it creates weaknesses. Yes, a little bit, like g6 and g5 are harder to defend, but I think that the bigger issue is black's not not constructively really gaining anything. The rook on h8 might come into play. But black should play b5 straight away. I'm sort of sorry he didn't. Alright, so now I adopt this kind of most aggressive setup. I recommend against the Owens defense and the St. George to play bishop d3 and queen e2. And oftentimes there's some sort of like hidden pressure in many variations where the king is on e8. You've got various tactical possibilities that benefit white, because if black plays e6, maybe d5 is hard to play. Also tactical possibilities along the e line. Now here we have to consider trying to take this pawn and hold on to it. Normally black plays c5 only after e6, being able to like recapture with pawn. So having played a6 and not having the move knight a6 available, white needs to seriously consider maybe taking the pawn and trying to hold on to it. What would happen if I play pawn takes pawn e6, bishop e3 for example? It looks a little suspicious for black, but after queen c7, he can try to win the pawn back. I'd have to play b4, and then perhaps c3 when things are a little bit murky, because in the variation like d takes c, e6, bishop e3, queen c7, b4, black has a5 there. And despite losing the b5 pawn, I think, you know, something like c3, pawn takes pawn, queen e5 could just win my rook on a1. I think I'm inclined to take one last look and make sure this isn't possible to take this pawn somehow. And then I'm inclined to keep my structure intact. Resignanian, welcome to Weird Wednesday. We've got black playing the weird opening now. By the way, Resignanian, I really am curious about your, you know, variation in the, what is that, the Paulson Sicilian? Yesterday, this move, this idea of knight e5 after queen b3, played in just like 1 or 2 games that I could find, but it's seemingly like a really sound pawn sacrifice, except, you know, there's not that many games. I mean, is this something that you just came up with, or it's actually recommended? I'm curious if you want to give us any info on that. You know, is that a known suggestion, or just something that you came up with? Because it looks really like it almost casts doubt on queen b3. I'm not sure that white can really get an advantage in this whole variation. Maybe the whole variation white can't get an advantage, but no, I'm just curious if you want to give us any information on that. We're happy to discuss it. Knight f3. So an interesting theoretical game yesterday with National Master Resignanian. He made a very interesting pawn sacrifice that at first glance I thought was simply a blunder, but on deeper inspection it looks like it's like a planned and interesting sacrifice. Okay, now knight to c6. This is where we see the queen on e2 sometimes coming handy. I could play d5 here, but he can't take because the pawn takes pawn, knight e7, and d6, winning a piece. But he can play knight e7 right away. Black is very tangled up, and the position is slightly dubious, but maybe it's in my interest not to mess with it. So I'm just going to play... I usually play a3. In this type of position. Ninjuju used Banworth. It's okay. He only has a minor timeout from the Mubot. Mubot is very, very strict but very forgiving. It will only give you a short timeout. If I give you a timeout, it would be a longer timeout. Weird but not hopeless. No, I like the St. George. I don't like h5. Actually, h5 is a very bad move because h6 is a move that, you know, might be necessary at some point, you know, and also f6 is a move that might be necessary. So in the defense of this variation, I think that h5 is a pretty significant weakness on the king side. Now, Andrea closing it up with c4. Rubinstein would not approve. By pushing c4, you close the position, but you actually take pressure off of d4. And that makes it easier for me to kind of build up in the center and on the king side behind this ideal pawn center. Instead of that, I guess, well, whatever you do, you're sort of a tempo down here because of h5, but I don't know what to recommend. Now, big decision here. Do I want to close it up with e5 or keep the tension or take on d5? And Mubad is answering. Take on d5. Queen takes d5. I'm not overly impressed with the idea of developing his queen for him. But maybe we have some sort of tactics. You know, this actually looks pretty dangerous for black. Well, I mean, takes d5, queen takes bishop e4, queen somewhere, I guess. Queen, where does he go, actually? That actually looks like a problem. And maybe we're nearly winning by force here. All right. Operating tactically. Doesn't really have a good square to go to, does he? Or does he? I thought this was nearly lights out, but maybe not that easy. Black should be close to lost here, tactically, along the file. And now knight e5 is interesting. Knight e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes a8, knight d3 check. I win the exchange. Black has this knight entrenched in my position. But my king is safe. Let's go for it. Do I have better? Maybe e5 here? Does it do anything? d5, I mean. Pawn takes pawn. Bishop takes d5 check. Inconclusive. I don't really see anything there. I'm going to go for this. I'm getting low on time. Andrea plays very fast. I have to add some kind of like excessive use of punctuation to Mubot. Well, knight g4. You mean to say knight d3 check, Andrea? Timed out for excessive use of punctuation. Someone's banging on the wall, which is very annoying. Not in my house, in the next house, it sounds like. Not much to do about that. Could be downstairs. It's not too loud, though. Kind of a soft banging on the wall. I really need to just develop my pieces here. I think I'm kind of stalling. Bishop g5 looks good. I don't mind exchanging. I'm down. I'm up material, up a piece in exchange. Otherwise known as the exchange. So here, trading pieces, fine by me. So Andrea, you're supposed to play knight d3 check in that variation. You have a little compensation because my king has to play king d1, and you're down the exchange, but you've got my king trapped in the center. So there's some argument that you have practical chances. Okay, so knight to d2. Welcome everybody. International Master William Paschall. It's Weird Wednesday, so we're playing unusual openings today. That's the idea of the stream. Good combative move here, bishop d6. And I don't know. Black's developed actively, but this costly material loss seems like it should be nearly decisive. h5 didn't help. So Andrea, h5 is kind of like a handicap, self-handicapping move. I would reserve that until you get to master level. And then even then I would do it only for fun. Like I do, only for fun. It's not a good move. H5. Now knight resuming back its duties at... knight will resume its duties. What should I do here? Just take on f6, perhaps? Black has a very little bit of compensation. I'm not sure if this is the best plan, but I'm going to stick with it. Try to keep it simple. Trading pieces. He's very fast. We have a kind of trend, you know, most of the players here on lichess are sort of blitz experts, I want to say. This pawn is free. That knight has a little bit of an issue. Tripled pawns. If I castle, banging's starting to get kind of annoying. Why did they pick right now to do it? Alright, queen f3. I could even give up a pawn here, no problem. Up and comer hosting me for 10 viewers. Nice, thank you. King d8. In that case, I'm going to castle. I am allowed to castle, right? Sometimes we play chess 960, and actually I had queen a8 check there. Slight oversight, but that's alright. We have a second chance. Sometimes in chess 960 I have a tendency to try to make illegal moves. Sometimes even in normal chess we do try to make illegal moves. This is a rook. This is a rook. This is a queen exchange. Alright. So h5 a little bit over the top, man. Hunt the king. We're going to be playing white again. Are you guys challenging me to colors? Or just try to use a random challenge when you do challenge me. Color random. It was a disaster. But there's no need for h5. That's weird enough. It's weird enough as it is. You might experiment with h5, but I don't think the a6 and b5 really fits in well with h5. Alright, yeah, hunt the king. Okay, e4 again. I could play a standalone unusual move like a3 or something. And he played the Scandinavian. Okay, so it's kind of hard to get an unusual opening against the Scandinavian. We can try something here. We can try something. I was thinking about knight f3, pawn takes pawn, knight g5. But, you know, I don't really think that's even close to correct. I mean, it's not like the Budapest Gambit where black has played c5 and weakened the position a little bit more. Now, I'm not sure this is really viable. So if we want to play something unusual here, I guess we'll have to go with something like knight to c3, try to turn it into a dunce opening. That's what it is, knight c3. So, definitely not a mainline move. Certain openings make it hard for me to play unusual lines. Alright, now d4. And I have seen knight to b1 on occasion. I think that was played against me once, but knight e2 is most common. Shevninga, welcome, man. Here now, I always think of International Master Dean Ippolito. He was a little kid in New Jersey. I remember, he's much younger than me. I remember he played this opening with white every game. This was his only opening at first. I never actually played against him, but I would watch him as a child prodigy, playing adults with the dunce opening, thinking, what a strange opening for a little kid to specialize in. d3. I'm not sure that d3 is the main move there. It's basically a kind of like King's Indian attack. at this point. That's really all it is. But black isn't committed to playing c5, so yeah, I call it a King's Indian attack. It's more like a Peertz kind of position. Black hasn't actually played c5, like a reversed Peertz. And I've seen all sorts of different stuff, like very aggressive plans. I mean, bishop g4 looks kind of over the top, you know. So I don't really see any great benefit from the move bishop g4. I could even try to play bishop h3, and trade off my bad bishop here. You can argue for this move. Bishop to h3. Take. The knight's a little misplaced on h3, I think. There's some logic to bishop g4, maybe. Induce me to play f3. Alright. h3 feels kind of weakening, but at the same time, it's not an unusual move in the King's Indian, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. h3, and I don't know, I mean, sometimes in similar positions we see the bishop give up its life for the we give up the bishop for a knight and make white play with a bad bishop, so to speak. The famous like games where Kyrgyz beat Fischer in the Caro-Kann, where Fischer played like a knight f3, knight c3, you know, 2 knights variation against the Caro-Kann. Now he's backing off with bishop e6. This is similar to some variations of like the modern defense with colors reversed. So I think f4 is called for here. Breaking up the black pawn center. Trying to break up the black pawn center. Now we have f5, g4 with the pawn storm on the king's side. Black isn't castled yet. So it's not that clear. I could play a pawn storm on the king's side or just keep the tension. I also have pawn takes pawn, knight f3. Pawn takes pawn, bishop takes, knight f3. Looks really strange to me, this position. I don't know. I thought this pawn is a little bit weak on d4. But black's position is reasonable, except perhaps for that move. Knight c6 I thought was necessary. Now I can actually snap a pawn here with knight takes d4. So it's really a blitz game. I'm thinking it's more classical. I'm used to playing the 8-3 time control. So we've got to adapt to the changing time control. Basically black playing a little bit unsoundly in this game. Dropping this pawn doesn't seem correct. Knight c6 was okay though. It was okay. Now we should just be up a clear pawn. And we still, I feel like we've been playing very fast, but we're still behind on the clock by over a minute. I totally winged this e4, d5, knight c3 because I try to play the Vienna a lot. Now what? Do I take here? Well, it is a powerful bishop. I can castle on either side, prospectively. And there I thought you should have taken the opportunity to prevent me from castling kingside, maybe knight e8 or something. Although it's passive, the position now is pretty stable after I castle kingside. I would have wanted me to castle queenside when the game is a little bit more like risky for both sides. Okay, you're down a pawn, you might be able to survive somehow. The 2 knights aren't too bad. But objectively, it's probably lost. You have a worse structure, down a pawn. I don't think the 2 bishops against 2 knights is all that bad in this closed kind of structure, actually. If you weren't down a pawn, you had a pawn on d6, black's position would be almost equal. If there were, say, a pawn on d6, I'd still think white was a tiny bit better long-term prospects with the two bishops, but not that big a deal. Okay, now rook c8 is a good move. Maybe I should trade one of my bishops off. Arguably the bad bishop. Not so arguably, actually. This is definitely my bad bishop. Not a bad bishop, but the bad bishop. Sludgy. Oh, Shevnigan says, sorry not challenging for the streams. Lately, my play is complete garbage, so I wouldn't present any challenge at the moment. Wow, that is some modesty there. But I like it, man. You expect a lot of yourself, and that's the way it should be. But you know, I am sorry that we can't play. Okay, now we've got this bishop is quite the powerhouse. What a turn, a reversal of fortune for that bishop. From e2 to c4. Stopping any kind of break with c4 and b5. No problem, Shevin, again. Just, you know, when you feel like you're ready. Guys, don't forget to check out my YouTube channel if you don't know about it. Like and subscribe. It's Video Chess Training on YouTube. I think tomorrow, finally, I might get time to upload video I'm making on my Simul review from last week. Every Sunday, I'm doing a Simul on lichess at 18:30 or 6:30 p.m. for 20-25 players. You're not going to get to play b5, sir. I mean, you might, but over my dead body. It's going to take you a while if you do. Hopefully by then I'll have something going. Nothing to really do about the banging on the wall from the other house. You could complain if it was in your own house, but the houses are connected. It's kind of tough. These giant, you know, 150-year-old buildings. I don't even know who lives on the other house. In the other house. It seems like they've been constructing very slowly something over the last like 3 years, because every 6 months or so they start banging on something, and then it stops for like 6 months, and then 6 months later it'll start again. So it's like a very slow, ongoing construction project. But hopefully you guys can't hear it. It's a pretty dull kind of sound. Active rook on f5. How did we get talking about the queen d8 Scandinavian? Knight e2, e5, knight g3, knight g6, knight f3, h5. Yes, Shevningen, that's correct. That is the most common line. But I'm not being an expert, of course. I never really liked that kind of setup. And what did I do? I played d3 on move 4. I mean, d3 on move 4, it's quite passive actually, but more in keeping with my, you know, normal kind of King's Indian attack sort of positions that I do play. I mean, now I've got some kind of heavy equipment drill. Never had this happen before during one of my streams. But we'll muddle through it since it's not directly in my house. You guys will probably hear that. Just pretend you're at the dentist or something. Alright, let's just get on the 7th rank and try to win this game. Maybe just c3 first. I could take as well. Take and play b3. Oh, I'm running out of time. Oh my god. That's how I almost flagged. Not the first time either. Hunt the king is trying to win on time. Dirty bird, you. Really trying to win on time in this hopelessly lost pawn down position. How do I make progress here? Damn, dude, that is an annoying sound from the construction next door. Hope it's not a regular occurrence. How do I make progress here? This looks like it could be curtains for black. Hard to defend both pawns. Black is lost here. This is really bad. 2 pawns down. Weakness on g5. Dropped another one. And another one, and another one, and another one. Bites the dust, right? Okay, good game, man. Ninju suffered a timeout in the chat stream. Excessive use of symbols or something after that. It's alright, man. Good luck. So, unusual openings here today. I've been trying to play e4, but nobody will let me play anything really interesting there. Let's play f4, the bird's opening. Nothing else. The e4 is not working, and I seem to get white every game. Would be nice to get black sometimes. I think that this happens a lot when people intentionally challenge me so that they get white. So don't do that if you could help it. When you guys challenge me to random colors, because if everybody wants to be white, you know, it gets a little bit, or everybody wants to be black or whatever, it gets imbalanced. So maybe it's just a coincidence. Now I played d6. That's a good move. Highly recommended by a lot of books. d6 is a solid option. It's some kind of construction in the next building, right up against my building. Like, the buildings are connected by a wall, and really nothing I can do about it. There is, the stream is behind, Ninju says. The stream has a 2-second delay. So, hopefully the loud noises won't continue throughout every one of my streams, but we'll have to tolerate it for now. Alright, having seen d6 now, what's the best reaction here? Well, I don't know. I mean, we can play e4. I can't imagine like e4 not being the best move for white. We could transpose to a sort of Pierce. If he wants to play a King's Gambit type position, he's got a passive line. Bird is the word. f4, e5. Would you say your favorite opening is c4? I guess, you know, it might be up there. Yeah, maybe. I do play a lot of c4. If you look at my games historically, it's one of my favorite openings. It was like my first opening, and that's probably like one of the reasons, because I did start with c4 essentially. My first tournaments anyway. My first real opening, my first opening book that I think I got was an English opening book. And then it just continued. I always loved playing the English. It's not, though, you know, been something I've done exclusively. I played a lot of d4 and a considerable amount of e4 too. So we did kind of branch out, though I'm trying to work on e4 more at the moment. Today is the focus. The focus is on unusual openings. So we played f4, but black played d6, which is a move a lot of authors have recommended. Kind kind of systematic approach, not giving white the classical kind of Dutch position that they want to get. The Dutch kind of depends on black playing d5 or d4, and if you don't play the d pawn 2 squares as a defender against f4, f5, you don't give the other side that Dutch kind of position in a true sense. So now knight to c6, and we have d4. Looks like an interesting try. I might have even had this position against somebody else. I seem to recall a game that went something like d4, bishop g4, bishop e2. The Fromm Gambit is really funny against the bird. Actually, where's our moderator? Jeroen likes to play f4. I don't wonder what his take is. Yeah, we haven't had a Fromm Gambit in the Weird Wednesday stream. Nobody's busted the Fromm's Gambit. We had a chance. Actually, we didn't have a chance here because black played d6, but we have had some chances. No one's taken me up on it. I don't know if maybe anybody played. Maybe we had one Fromm Gambit where I played e4. I don't think I would accept the Fromm's Gambit. I would prefer to play the King's Gambit with white. I think I'd rather have like more initiative rather than material. Every opening is actually a form of two knights tango. I'm getting that feeling too, up and comer. I'm definitely with you on that. Now we get into a kind of Pierce. This could transpose into a main line. And the move order is a little funky. And I could play like e5 at some point. I don't think it's that dangerous though, the early e5. Black's played knight c6 early. But I don't think that's necessarily easy to exploit. I'm not a huge fan of overextending myself with d5. But Ninju is a new player. I've not played this player before. It's a totally new account. If you dare me this Sunday, I'll play the Fromm Gambit in your simul. From which side? You'll play the white side of the Fromm's Gambit? That's what you're saying. I mean, I assume that's what you're saying. Maybe the other side. Yeah, we haven't had Fromm's Gambit, Jeroen. I did know a line at one point, but it's been a long time since I played that. Now e5. Looks like black might have got something here because of this early knight c6. But I guess it's probably a transposition to a somewhat normal position. I don't know. Modern defense, Pierce. What do you want to call it? But Ninju is playing quite dynamically. You also, do you always castle kingside in this line? Well, you know, this line is pretty weird. Black always castles kingside, but white, I guess, can castle either side depending on what happens. I suppose that most of the time in the variations, the normal variations with the Pierce, where you play like the normal Pierce, black castles and plays knight c6. White castles on the king side in most instances. But this isn't a normal variation. He's played knight c6 early, hasn't castled. He has a little bit more pressure on the center than would normally be seen. But I feel like he made a mistake here. He played knight b4. It's not like a, you know, devastating error, but I thought knight d4 was more thematic. You see a check. I don't think the check is all that great. I should just continue my development. But I do have to be aware that he has like c6. Breaking the center. So maybe I can also consider something like queen d2. Queen to d2 with the idea of what exactly? Maybe stealing the pawn on e5. That's never going to be easy to do. But yeah, I think in general white's castling kingside in most instances. Castle's kingside c6. Not really sure what's going on here. If I take on c6, knight takes d3. I think that queen d2 and castle's queenside is another possibility and totally viable. Well, where'd you get that idea, man? c6. Breaking up my center, so I have to take. I've had good results with e5 as white because I'm a noob probably. So he's talking about the Fromm's gambit, like f4, e5. I think he's talking about the Fromm's gambit anyway. I should say Fromm's gambit, not the Fromm's gambit. Or should I? How do I have to say that grammatically? Queen d2 or queen e1? This is kind of a standard maneuver. White has a normal position. I think it's about equal, objectively. Black playing this like a master, I would say. Although rook d1 might set up knight d4. I'm not sure I want to do that. I'll just develop a piece here. This move is tempting, but maybe questionable with the bishop on g4. So we're playing for like a kingside attack. More along the lines of an f4 Najdorf or some kind of Grand Prix attack sort of thing, looks like. Very standard Dutch-like plan. Queen e1, queen h4. Grand Prix attack Sicilian. I want to say, even in some instances, like the Black Mardimer, you know, you do stuff like this with white. This position's a little Black Mardimer-ish. Resembles a Slav structure, but with the f-pawn gone. That's weird. I don't know. I couldn't equate it to a Slav. I mean, I guess I could see what you mean, but okay, king h1, universal prophylactic move. For me, this is an f4 Najdorf. If somebody showed me this position, I'd probably guess it was like 6f4 in the Najdorf. But that's just one possibility. The Pierce is obviously another good guess. And now it's probably just lost for black. The secret purpose behind the quiet king h1. Maybe it's not that easy though. There you had, but you had queen b6 anyway. I mean, is it possible that black's okay after this? Just queen b6 anyway? White's better, but I'm not sure I'm winning material, you know? I mean, if I take on f6, you're taking on b2. and you're winning the material back. I might have to play some ridiculous quiet move like rook b1 after queen b6. Bishop takes f. This is a nice tactical try by black, actually. Knight d4. Bishop takes f6. Or is it? Bishop takes f6, knight takes, bishop takes. Or is it? You have some sort of tactic here? There's some tricks I have to watch out. Rook takes f6. Unfortunately, you know, allows tricks. Well, this way I end up with 2 pieces for a rook, I guess. Knight d4 is a clever move too, but queen b6 was also tempting. Every day we're here streaming from Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 12:30. And again on Sundays, we're doing my simul stream at 6:30 p.m. CEST. So we've got what here? 2 pieces for rook. Technically winning. But, you know, never that easy, not always that easy to execute in practice. This looks like a pretty good version. I have a monstrous square for my knight on d5. The knight is going to be absolutely unopposed and difficult to deal with for black. I don't have any weaknesses in my position, per se. So maybe queen b6 after all. Kind of shocking move there. Queen b6, knight a4, queen a5, also not that clear. I'm talking about when I played bishop g5. Threatening to win a piece, he just unpins with a hit on the pawn on b2, double attack. And I'm not sure that I can win material anymore. Probably best is rook b1, and then he loses control of d5. I have a positional advantage. I'm going with a move that gives my king a square. It also clamps down on his f5 break. So we can play for sort of positional advantage on both sides of the board. Looks like a very unpleasant position for black. Objectively lost. But basically a one-move mistake. Lord Alamo, thank you for supporting the stream. If anybody donates via PayPal, I much appreciate it. Even just $5 a year, if everyone would support me, I could keep this thing going indefinitely. So much appreciated if anyone could support the stream via PayPal. f6 now. I'm not rushing with knight to d5. Maybe I could play it first. I guess there's no real downside to this move. It actually contains a kind of hidden threat. The obvious threat is knight e7. It also puts pressure on f7. There's no more back rank problems, but I have an additional idea, which is very strong. Can't even play f5 and a4. That's really the secret, not so secret threat. All right, back to the challenges. Resignanian. All right, now we're white again. Why am I white every single game? That's the 4th game in a row I've been white. That's really kind of disturbing. Are you guys challenging me to playing with black or something? That is bizarre. I'm literally white I don't remember being white 4 games in a row in a stream before. That is really strange. Maybe just balancing my colors against certain players. I'm not sure how it works. Okay, against Resignanian, let's try a3. I mean, I'm running out of things to do with white. This was played by Adolf Anderson against Morphe, of course. And now d5. Okay, I have an idea what to do here. Maybe we'll do a kind of prie variation. d4. French Grandmaster Eric Prie likes to play this setup with a3 and bishop f4. Although against Rosigninian's move order, I have some reservations. I'm not a big expert. It's been a while since I looked at Prie's New in Chess article where he talks about all his games in this line. It was, I don't know, 15 years ago, and maybe not that much, but like 12 years ago. Anyway, he has a very good score, this GM, with his system, his pet line, so to speak. I think that maybe e3 is better there for me. I wasn't really thinking clearly. Bishop g3 is okay, but I think e3 might be even better. And now c5. So I don't know. I mean, in this instance, maybe we go with a kind of Ricard Rapport type of thing with like pawn takes pawn and pretend we're playing the. Let's pretend we're playing the Let's pretend we're playing like Ricard Rapport and we're playing the Rogozin like with colors reversed or something. We've got to play knight a2 at some point. I mean, if we want to truly play like Ricky, we've got to find a way to play knight a2. But how can I do that? It's like a little bit like Queen's Gambit accepted with colors reversed. a3 is a handy move because it stops things like knight to b4, discourages queen a5, bishop b4, whatever. I said the Rogozin, but I kind of lost my interest in bishop b5 after a while here. What do you think of the book, How to Reassess Your Chess? It seems good to me. I would recommend it. I mean, it's not a book that I've read or I really preach by, but I have seen it and I have had students who recommended it, and it seems, and I have paged through it. I mean, and I've seen a lot of the examples from it. I'm not just talking out of my butt, basically. I mean, I actually have seen a lot of the concrete examples from the book. So I'm not just speculating. No, it seems like a pretty good book. I would say that if you want to get a modern book for amateurs, I mean, it seems like pretty reasonable. Rook e8, solid move. And now what do we do? Rook e8, rook e1 is one option. Queen e2. Queen e2, e5, e4. But queen e2 is sort of setting me up for some nasty stuff. You know, I could get queen e2, e5, e4, bishop g4. That looks kind of unpleasant. Maybe h3, e5, e4 is not so bad. Half tempted to play bishop, these arrows. Bishop h4 at some point leaves the center. It doesn't seem right to me. I mean, I could play knight e5 like blockading the center as well. But ultimately, I mean, I'm not going to be able to maintain control forever. All right. We're kind of switching plans here. Just making it up as I go along. True Rapport aficionado. What do you think of Pawn Structure Chess by Andy Soltis? Yeah, I don't think it's not bad. Again, I can only reference my discussions with one of my students about that book. I've seen some examples and talked to one of my students about it. It's not a great book. It's not a bad book. There are probably, a lot of pawn structure books now, fairly simple, and some of the examples aren't that great, not that well explained, I would say. It's not meant to be like totally comprehensive book. It's not bad though. I mean, Soltis written some kind of crappy books. He's also written some very good books. So you never really know for sure what you're getting with Soltis. It really depends on the publisher and when he wrote it. He is a real journalist and he is very thoughtful, but some of his books weren't so great. This one is in the middle, I think. But he's covering a topic that's been pretty popular in chess literature. There have been like 4 pawn structure books, I think, in recent history. So the pawn structure chess, yeah, the Soltis book is okay. I've got to kind of play like Nimzovich here and try to blockade his center. I like the way that Rezignanian played this, though. Very positional, very solid. Didn't ask too much. He's played e6 and e5. He's played how I would play with white, basically, in analogous kind of positions. Not very aggressive, but quite solid setup for black. Bishop takes g3. I don't think that I have an advantage per se. The evaluation should be I'm pretty sure I'm not better here. I want to say I'm not worse. And then e5, which is very logical. So if we look at this in Uvian terms, I never used that description before, Jeroen. The Dutch world champion, Uwe. So we look at it in Uvian terms, we say that white has a minority of pawns in the center. C2, e4, f2 in the central area, and black has 4 pawns. So black has a central pawn majority here, which seems like a pretty darn good thing for black to have. So I'm hinting to the fact that maybe black is slightly better here, objectively, strategically. But that's what I get for playing d takes c5 in the opening. Give up your center, and you might have a minority of pawns in the center. Yeah, there was some examples where I thought his examples were kind of vague. One game in particular in the Pawn Structure Soltis book, I think he did an Ivkov book in the Dutch defense or something, and I thought his descriptions in that game were pretty vague. That was one example I went over with one of my students, and I wasn't really, we weren't that impressed by that example. Alright. Well, I mean, Soltis wrote a lot of books, and some of them are out of love, and some of them are just like churning out books for money. He's better than Raymond Keane by a long shot, but he's still written some books that feel like he just needed the money and, wrote sort of anything. Alright, now we have like knight a5 with the idea of getting the knight on c5, maybe? It's interesting. Did I say knight a5 with the idea of getting the knight on c5? Maybe I meant knight c4. Going fully Nimzovich here. Just trying to be annoying so that black doesn't get like complete control of the position. Obviously I could play rook b1 or something like that. I don't know, maybe b4 was worth a look, but he could play a5. I agree with Up and Comer. There are probably better pawn structure books out there. Trying to get a grip on the center. Get an outpost for the horse. You can blockade. Now bishop g4. Well, f3 is not on the table, is it? I never tried to play like Ricard Rapport before. And I never will again. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in the setup for white. But I did try to play the prie before, I have to admit. At least once. But this wasn't a good version. It wasn't really a good version of the prie attack. The concept is to play a kind of London system with the move a3. And I just don't think that this particular instance, what I did here was all that great. f3 is very weakening. Just don't think I want to do that. My favorite word. Well, he's not threatening anything. I'm not threatening anything. What's going on here? He's trading off his weak pawn. What's he supposed to do? I don't know what I expected him to do. What's the guy to do? Trading off his weak pawn. Actually, f3 might not be a bad move. But it might be a bad move. f3, queen f2, weakening the defense. It weakens my king side a lot. Now where do I put my king? This is kind of a tough call. We're both low on time. I don't want to play f3. I mean, it just really weakens my king side. Yesterday against Resignanian, I had a position where my king side was really kind of sketchy. How about trading white squared bishops? I feel a little comfortable, like when I simplify, if I'm getting in time pressure, I feel more comfortable simplifying the position. Here, I don't know if this is the right idea or not. Position is about equal, but a dynamic equilibrium, imbalance. Powerful knight on c5. I think negates the power of his passed pawn there. This is a really monster horse. Otherwise, black would be slightly better with the powerful protected passed pawn. We have possibilities to just blockade here. Take, take. If I take, though, he has take on... Alright, so queen c4, I guess. For lack of a better move. This is a good move. I hope. Very Rapportian play by white. Now what are we doing? Do you want to play like rook to the open file? Yeah, I thought you'd see it your way. But I absolutely refuse to play f3 until later when the queens are traded. I will not weaken my king side with that. Queen g5. Okay. Sure, what he's doing. He's trying to checkmate me or something. Interesting. He's trying to checkmate me. Maybe. Yeah, that's what it looks like. The dude is like trying to checkmate me here. So that can't be tolerated. He's trying to play knight g4 and queen h5, which is really scary. I mean, I could get checkmated there for sure. Rook b1. Both very low on time here. Well, e4 is a nice move. Unfortunately, so I have to lose a pawn. What I don't want to do is lose more than a pawn here. My knight is actually trapped. Wow. All right. The very, very technical position here. Not too much time for commentary. Not that simple, but I guess subjectively should be a draw. Saw that. Best be careful here. I play g3, try to create a sort of fortress. Not so easy, but not so easy for black to make progress here. Important not to play g4. That would really weaken my position tremendously. Yikes. Well. You just try to check him away. What's the best move here? I didn't realize that Resigninian was such a technical expert, but he seems to be very comfortable here in this kind of position. I felt this was surely a draw, but now I'm not so sure. Cut this a little too close. Actually, what's going on here? I'm just running out of time. Well, that wasn't the best move, was it? We had a somewhat stronger line, I think. He was just hanging a piece. That's absolutely ridiculous. He was just hanging a piece on e3. Yeah. All right. Good game. Alligator did not see the hanging piece till it was, of course, too late. GG. Alligator, I'm going to play e4. That was a very long game. That took like 20 minutes. Yeah, he was just hanging a piece with rook e8. I saw it as soon as I played the move. It's a draw in position, but I have to be very, very precise. Alright, d5. I hate it when people play the French. I don't think you're giving me too many options to play something unusual. I don't know if Alligator knows this is an unusual opening stream, but I've got to find something with white a little bit offbeat, I guess. He's not going to play something offbeat. So what am I supposed to do? I don't think he understands the principle here. Alright. Now I've got to play, we had the similar situation against someone who played the French against me, and I had a difficult time finding an unusual line. Some people here are just going to play like normal and expect me to find something, but in e4, e5 it's easy, but against the French kind of hard. Maybe I should play something earlier, but We can try f3, bishop d3. Maybe this move. I don't know. I don't know how offbeat I can get here. And then he insta-plays c5. This is like my game with Shansha. Kind of similar. This is definitely the best move. And now we'll play some kind of IQP position maybe. I could also play e5, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense with the bishop on d3. Maybe just knight f3. That allows c4 though, so I feel like I almost have to take here. If pawn takes d4, bishop e5 check. That's the trick there. That I'm lucky that I have that. So I tried to play an unusual variation here with bishop d3. But it feels like we're not getting into the spirit of unusual openings here too much in the last two games. A little bit last game. Tried to play something unusual, bishop d3. I should vary earlier, but against the French it's really hard to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, like maybe advanced variation with b4 or something. So now it's a kind of exchange French with c5 early. I could take on c5. It's a little bit passive. Knight e2 loses a piece. That's a stupid idea. h3. Pawn takes pawn, bishop b5 check. Is a very slow kind of move. You could play like, what can we play? Pawn takes pawn, followed by knight to e2. It's very, very passive for white. Well, there's also queen e2 check at some point. You know, this might be an important resource here, actually. Queen e2 check is kind of interesting. Queen e2 check, bishop e6, then knight f3. Let's try that. And the French exchange, the knight on c3 is misplaced. Well, no, I mean, it usually goes to c3 in many variations. I mean, it depends. You know, you can play different variations. Sometimes with knight on c3, sometimes not. Here we sort of saved the tempo, you might say. Now maybe we've got to watch our queen. Black playing extremely accurately here. Quick castle. He's playing his main line opening, it looks like. I don't know, but my position is a little bit dubious. Yeah, rook e8. I'm gonna end up moving my queen again. So this was a fail. This was a definite fail for me. He's used no time. You guys, it's like, let's try to play some creative games today, not just take the opportunity to beat on me because I'm in unusual positions. I want everybody to kind of engage in the unusual opening theme. And bishop g4. Nothing I can do. I mean, I've got to eliminate this pin. h3 is okay, but it weakens my king side. It may be better to just play something like queen d1 and bishop e2, actually. It's pretty slow, though. We could consider bishop g5, developing a piece. If bishop takes f3, it may not be the end of the world. That's another thing to consider here. Players like Blackburn would sometimes allow bishop takes f3 in the exchange French, but then again, you're mostly castling queenside in those kind of situations. So, you know, Halligator here just playing insta moves, and looks like he's out to get me. I'm gonna play bishop g5, I guess. Just try to get my pieces out in this position. Yeah, I'm gonna move my queen now. Time to move the queen. So Halligator out to get me. He's never beaten me before, but today is very likely to be the first time. This position I don't like for white. But I was really striving to get something unusual after these initial moves, e4, e6. I guess I have to play something here right away on move 2 if I want to get an unusual opening against the French. It's a little bit hard. Against the French in general, I don't like doing French games in the unusual opening stream because it's very, very hard to get anything really interesting. I find against the French more than anything else difficult. You know, there's not a lot of interesting stuff. Maybe in the advanced variation I could play some kind of weird gambit. Next time I'll try that. Any tips on someone trying to learn? Yeah, I mean, I really think that you need to balance playing and studying. And anyone who tells you otherwise is a liar. So, there really should be considerable amount of time devoted to both. Play and study. So just put our faith in the hands of Joseph Henry Blackburn, you know, and let the doubled f-pawns happen, man. I mean, that's all we can do here. I'm close to a piece sacrifice on h6, I would think. Man, does this look strong or does this look strong? Bishop takes it. What would Blackburn do? Whew. This might be good right away. I can't imagine like why it's not good. The slicing sort of bishops, the G file, a la Blackburn. If it's Scotch kind of structure, Scotch bishops, G5 and D3. Oh, you're just begging me to sacrifice a piece here. Looks very difficult. Well, the opening was just absolute abomination for white. I love it when I get coffee grounds in my coffee. Delicious. So, how is the noise from the construction in the next building? Can you guys hear that? It's not too loud, fortunately. I played chess very minorly all my life. Minorly. I just need some stuff to do in between my homework. Oh. Well, it all depends on how serious you are. But, I mean, a lot of people get hooked on just playing online blitz. And I don't mean to discourage it entirely, but if it gets to the point where it's like this addiction, it's probably too much, and you should focus on studying too. Alright, man, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, probably not enough. Queen g5. Queen g5 actually kind of traps my own piece. Queen g5, knight g6. So we have to be very thoughtful here. What are we going to do about knight f3 and continue the attack at the same time? Queen f4? Now his defenses are strengthened, so this may be kind of tricky. This may be kind of tricky. Maybe I have to retreat with like bishop f4. Okay, rook g1. Rook g1. Oh man, rook g1. Queen takes, knight takes f3 is a problem. Maybe bishop e2. But I really need to defend myself here, I guess. I hate to do this, bishop f4. I really hate to retreat, but I am down to a minute and I didn't see a clear continuation. Knight e5, a really heads-up move by Haligator. We're just going to hunker down. I did not see a clear way to make progress there. Queen g5, knight g6. I probably missed something, but I don't see enough attacking force. But perhaps I had like queen g5, knight g6, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, something like that. Not a lot of squares for the queen. We're not down any material. We've got two bishops that are fairly active. But I think Haligator is okay here. He's okay. My piece is pointing at the king side with the bishops and the rook on the g file. It's not easy. I think black probably has to be very, very careful. I guess I prefer white still. This is a known trick. I mean, I call it a trick. The concept of white allowing the doubled isolated f-pawns in the exchange French type position. As I said, it goes back to the 1800s with some Steinitz and before him Blackburn. What are the basic openings I should learn and understand? I think that the most fundamental is to start with, e4. What do I do here? Maybe bg5, pinning. I don't know. Rook g1, sacking a pawn. Alright, we don't have a lot of time. I'm certainly willing to sack a pawn for the open file attack here. To hell with my f-pawn, I say. Got to play for initiative. Don't need that pawn anyway. He takes, simplifying. Queen takes. Dynamic equality again. Raises its ugly head. I don't know. Kind of sharp, actually. Got to be a bit careful here. I feel like it should be about equal, objectively. Both have an isolated pawn. We have the same pieces. Both have slightly kind of exposed king. Development is about the same. Yeah, I think this is best, Haligator. Knight e4 seems kind of forced. I agree with you on that move. Resulting position is maybe slightly better for black. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was slightly better. Here, I have to be careful. But I don't think that black has, I said dynamic equality. Maybe black after knight e4 is slightly better. Although I don't think that it's any position I shouldn't be in dire straits with. Bishop h6, bishop e5, queen g3. I think queen g3 is probably a mistake. I need to be careful here. At the same time, I hate to play bishop g3, blocking my file. Just need to make a move now. technical position. Much like my game with Rezignanian last game. Probably should hold it, but it's hard to play with just 3 seconds. Well, this is an ambitious move. Wow, queen takes d5, rook h4. What's the idea here? Queen takes d5, rook h4? What is going on? Alligator. There's that cartoon alligator. What was it? Alligator. That was it. We're really going 80s there. Early 80s. Alligator. Queen c7. For a second I hallucinated I hung mate, but it's not so easy to checkmate me. Man, this construction sound is really irritating. He resigned. Oh, he hung his queen. I didn't even realize it, man. You shouldn't resign because I didn't even realize you hung your queen. You know, give me a little bit of less credit. Give me a little bit less credit because I did not see that. I have a tendency to panic here. Misclick. Alright. Yeah, the take backs with 12 seconds left are like sort of few and far between. Interesting game though. We learned something about the dynamic potential for white in those double isolated f-pawn positions at least. Crusader of Hope. Get through an opening without losing. Absolutely. So Lord Alamo, I'm going to try to play e4 again. I'm getting white almost every single game. Or did I have it every single game? Dude, what is up with this? Are you guys watching this? Why do I have white every single game? I've had white every single game. There's something wrong with that. That's not okay. Here I thought we played the center game. I mean, we played a lot of King's Gambits and stuff like that. But let's try something different. You know, the King's Gambit we've featured in Weird Wednesday streams. It's almost come to be like hackneyed and expected that we play the King's Gambit. But the center game... There was a brief period in the 90s when Morozevich actually... You challenge random color. Yeah, I'm thinking there's some kind of conspiracy going on. I mean, how can everybody challenge me with asking for black? You know, that's not likely. It's more likely there's something funny going on, like Thibault is like trolling me or something that I'll play like white for the rest of my life. It's very strange. When in doubt, move a knight. Yeah, so here, if you move this knight, and I play e5, knight c6, you know, queen e3 allows knight g4, queen e3, knight g4, queen e2. But is that, you know, is that a mistake? I can play e5, and after knight c6, play queen e3. You know, usually everybody plays knight c6, and knight f6 is very rare. So after e5, knight c6, I could play either queen f4 or queen e3. Queen c3 not recommended due to bishop b4 winning a queen. e5, knight c6. You guys know I know a lot of theory here. Queen f4. I did once play this opening with white against... Very, very bad decision to play it against... Christian Sabo, the Hungarian GM. I just thought, oh, he won't be prepared for the you know, center game. At least he wouldn't expect it from me. It didn't work at all. e5, knight c6, queen e3, or queen f4. Queen e3, knight g4 would win a pawn, but then I have like the threat of f4 winning a piece. So e5, knight c6, queen e3, knight d5 starts to get really weird. Like queen e4. I mean, let's see this. I don't know, what's up with this position, but it looks like you're supposed to play knight c6 right away. I'm going to try it. It looks interesting enough that, I don't see a refutation. Queen f4 allows like knight h5. That's probably not a problem. Queen f4, knight h5. Maybe queen e3 is a little more central. But there is a weird variation here. Queen e3, knight g4, and then I don't know, queen e2, knight d4. Okay, that's just too bizarre. Is it? Queen takes g4, knight takes c2 check, king d1, knight takes a1. Do I have any kind of compensation for that there? I don't know. Looks like something from outer space. We have like bishop g5 at the end in those lines. Actually quite interesting. So I'm thinking quite a bit here. I don't think it's that trivial. Queen f4, queen e3 might be a big difference. Maybe queen f4 is a little bit better. Knight h5, queen g4, g6. That looks strange. So knight h5, perhaps just queen back to e4, centralizing. This looks like the right way to do it. Alright, now this move, obviously I want to centralize my queen. It's a little bit similar to a line in the hyper-accelerated dragon that I play. Obviously, excuse me, you've not played c5, you played e5. But I think we can learn a lot, from playing these unusual openings. It's good for your practice. Knight e7 now. That's passive, though. What are you going to do? Knight b6 isn't great either. Knight b4. I could play simply like a3. So I understand your decision to play knight e7. But white seems better now. Centralized queen is definitely a good asset. Though I'm not sure how big my advantage is. The f7 square looks particularly sensitive. Alright, I'm just going to make a fundamental move. Knight f3, developing a piece, guarding e5. Yes, d5 is without question. Now things get a little bit complicated. So there's two candidate moves here, but bishop f5 allows pawn takes e7. That, I guess, that drops a piece. Never mind. So you have to do queen takes d6. I mean, pawn takes d6 might be playable, but it's not really optimal. Okay, queen d6. Definitely not optimal. Knight b5 would be nice, but my knight's on b1. Slight problem. You do have bishop f5 coming up, so maybe bishop f4 is necessary here. Take. Bishop f4 has its disadvantages too. How about like bishop c4 developing a piece? He's ready to castle queenside and things could get sharp after bishop f5. He's going to play bishop f5 and castle queenside with a very sharp game. Bishop f4, queen b4 check. I have the interesting option of knight c3 there. Sacking my b2 pawn for initiative. I don't think that's all that clear. Alright, I'm running out of time here. I have my doubts about this. I really have my doubts about this. Maybe this isn't so great for me. Bishop f4 feels wrong. I mean, maybe I should just play knight to c3. Then bishop f5. Knight c3, bishop f5, and something fundamental for white. Could even play bishop f4 now. No, that's a little crazy. Queen b4 check. Now knight c3, queen takes b2, or knight c3, bishop f5, queen takes b4, knight takes b4, castles queenside, knight c3, queen takes b2, rook b1, and then there's this like, wow, kind of dangerous looking attack. Let's try this. This is interesting. Knight c3. Lord Alamo. Alright, man. My original plan was to play the wimpy queen takes b4, but I've gone for it now. Rook b1. Because c7 looks like a very dangerous weakness in black's position. Are you serious? Oh my god. I didn't see my knight was hanging. Wow, that's crazy. Nice blunder. Yeah. Good game, me. I thought I could play rook b1. That's ridiculous. Good eye. Yeah, so I had to trade queens on b4. Knight takes b4. I just didn't think I have anything here. I started convincing myself I have to play another move. You're simply taking a piece, man. Oh my god. Alright, this is lost. I would resign, but you still have to play a couple moves. Because you are a little behind in development. But I don't have any threats anymore without the knight going to b5. You're out of ideas. I'm out of ideas too. Man. Just blundered a piece. That's pretty bad. I feel that's actually the second time I've done that recent history. Last week I did it on Wednesday as well. No, it was a different day. I just dropped a piece on b2. Whenever I let them take on b2, I end up dropping pieces. Yeah, knight on c3. That's a weird hallucination. But that's what happens sometimes when you play positions you're not familiar with. There's a lot to be said for being comfortable in like familiar scenarios, familiar situations. I feel very, despite all my experience, I feel very alien in this position. Yeah, this looks like it's going to be over after bishop f5. No, it's nothing now. I just have to resign. Alright, thanks Lord Alamo. Sorry for dropping a piece there. Dropping pieces, my specialty. Well, it's the second time I've done that in the last 2 weeks. Last week I dropped a piece in the French defense in a totally reasonable position. If we look here quickly at the analysis board, yeah, I don't know. This is apparently a variation. It's supposed to be good for black according to the computer. Wow. Okay, I don't know. This stockfish isn't really reliable, but no games found. So everybody played queen e3, but if queen e3, I was concerned this is legitimately weird. You know, knight g4, and I meant to play queen e2, but queen e2 allows knight d4, I thought. See how badly I misevaluated this position. This is a really... I invented a new move here, knight d4, but I wasn't sure what's going on here. In this line looks... Wow, d5, that's a secret move. Okay, didn't see that. Anyway, so apparently this has been played, but everybody plays queen e3 instead of queen f4. Everybody. Not many games here. queen f4, knight d5, queen e4, and now knight b6 or knight e7. Everybody plays mostly knight b6. So I don't know. I mean, this seems good for me. I played knight f3. Maybe developing the queen side is better, but we'll see. This is black's... Okay, I don't trust this computer engine, but perhaps like it's the wrong idea. Knight f3. I need to develop the queen side first with knight c3. This was played in one game. Interesting. But the position should be okay for black. So that's... Thank you for the game and an interesting position there. Very, very rarely played. That was fun, though. I'm glad that you played something different. It wasn't fun dropping a piece, but it was fun to actually play a new position, which we don't get that often. So, alright, against Azim Ali Soitari, actually we can usually count on him to play something unusual. But I'm sorry to drop a piece, guys. I'm white again. This is not a coincidence, okay? Does anybody have a theory on this? I've played every single game with white. What is going on? This is not funny. This is a dream, you know, where you're white every game. So King's Gambit accepted. Yeah, I just dropped a piece on c3. But the ending looks okay for black. I'm surprised there's not more games in that position, though. I have to check in ChessBase, because the lichess database is just master games. It's pretty pared down. It doesn't have old games. My one thing that I really have problem with the lichess master database is that a lot of the older games are not in there. That's the only, only problem. Anything from like the 60s and earlier, it seems like they're very sparse. So knight to c6. Actually, I played this, I think, with black once. Seems like quite a reasonable line to me, actually, for black. Alright, what should we do? Take, queen takes, bishop takes, f4, or e5? Takes, queen takes, bishop f4. Get our pawn back, but black develops very quickly there. So knight c3, bishop b4 maybe. Another option. e5 looks kind of slow. I had never had this many games with white in a row. What is going on? Should we let him in on it, guys, or keep it going? Scaleaf said, everybody challenged me to black? Are you serious? It's like a concerted effort. Everybody's gonna play black. Why, it'd be funnier if you made me black every game. This is that's even worse. Alright. So here I'm not dropping a piece because queen e4, queen e2. I'm going to try not to drop pieces. That's going to be the main goal from here on out, basically. Bishop e2. Man. Bishop e2 looks good. There's a kind of weird line here. Bishop e2, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3. Yeah, that's not really good for black. Interesting. But there is bishop e2, queen e4. Bishop takes c7. Alright, this is weird enough that I'm good with it. If I have to take with the g-pawn again, that's probably standard policy in this kind of position. I'd like to know who's behind this prank. It's not even April Fool's Day. But castle's queenside, so I really feel I need to play c3. How many games in a row is that? Like 6 games in a row I've been white? I think it's 6. Is it just 5? I could believe it if it was like 4 or 5. But now it's gotten to the point where I know that something's going on. I'm a little slow on the uptake. Karpov gave a simul nearby my town. His belly was moving back row pieces. Oh man. Karpov. What is Karpov, like 70 now? Yeah, that's what happens when you become a politician. I had a funny story at the poker game I played on Friday. There was this guy I don't really like, and he's just kind of obnoxious. But anyway, he has a really big belly for his age. He looks like he's about 30, I want to say. And in Hungarian, when you call somebody like, you generally speak about like older guys like as like uncles. It's called bácsi. You're a bácsi. Like you call like old man and older man as like bácsis, you know. But it can also kind of be just like for a guy, you know, an older guy. And I don't know why, but this guy has a big belly and he's kind of, he looks older than he really is. And I told my friend, who's like 50, much older than the guy, you know, I called him a bácsi. I said, this bácsi is getting on my nerves, you know. And my friend was like really shocked because he's like 50, you know, and to call a 30-year-old guy a bácsi, like uncle, is a strange concept. But the guy the guy has this huge belly, and you know, he's basically shaped like an old man, you know. So he's 10 years younger than me, but I was calling him like uncle whatever because he really seemed like it, you know. Karpov has turned into Uncle Karpov. That's the point of the story. Looks like Karpov's turned into Uncle Karpov. Yeah, sorry to hear that. Karpov not keeping in touch with his fitness program. I decided to sacrifice this pawn here on b2. If black wants to take it, I don't know, man. I mean, these bishops are pointing right at the black king side, so that looks kind of dangerous. I didn't want to take any more time here to worry about the niceties of a pawn structure, but maybe it was too ambitious. My king is on f2, honestly. I'm getting a little bit too optimistic, especially after hanging a piece the other game. Karpov, okay, g5. I don't have bishop g4 check, or do I? Well, not right away, but even if I did, I don't know if I'd want to do that. g5 is an annoying move. Bishop g3, f5 is the problem. Though maybe not that big a problem. We shall see. Complicated game. White has a strong center, but my king's a little bit popped out on f2. We have a good bishop pair. The black king side, queen side could come under attack. Well, actually, I have a student coming today who wants to work on his technique and playing better, kind of like tactical prophylactic chess, being careful, winning positions and stuff like that. So I thought today maybe I'm going to be working on some Karpov games with my student, because it's really, I can't think of a better example of player who, you know, has very instructive kind of technique and is very careful. He never spoils like winning positions, and this is exactly the kind of thing that the guy I'm working with, you know, wants to improve on. So I think that a player like Karpov is the perfect example. So now A4, inducing him to take the pawn was my plan. But I don't know, it's actually starting to have second thoughts here. I may not have too many choices though. I don't like bishop takes c6, giving away. But I've got a problem. The rook e1 is interesting too. Just going directly for the black king. Black's development isn't really good. Rook e1, he may just develop a piece. Rook e1, he's got some tactics here. Alright, I'm going to try this. This is kind of risky. I wonder if I should think about rook e1 instead last move. This is sort of a Shirov type of sacrifice. I'm not sure this is sound, but it gets his queen off this fifth line, which creates some tactical possibilities for me. What am I going to do though? Queen takes b2, rook c1, defending my pawns. Well, he played queen d3. That's a terrible move. It just loses by force. Trap your own queen. But queen takes b2, so it was a bluff. It was really a bluff, I think. It doesn't need to play that. I bluffed him again. You had queen e3 check, king f1, and black is probably okay. So I bluffed you twice now. Bluffed myself. I just am talking about this bluffing because I just did a lecture on a Shirov game from the Isle of Man. He played in round 8 against Harika, this pretty strong Indian woman who's a men's grandmaster, and it was like, I don't know, she was like hypnotized or something, because Shirov just kept getting away with these moves that weren't really necessarily correct, but black seemed hypnotized. And here, I mean, queen takes b2, it's like the power of suggestion. He should take on c2, on b2, and then again after bishop b2, I suggest it, and he you know, gives up the material, but he has queen e3 check, and I have king f1, and black is fine there. So every time I say something, it sort of comes true, but it was all just a lie. I mean, I think that the sacrifice on b2 was unsound, and this is unsound as well. I'm just very fortunate that Azim Lisutari is like listening to the stream and believing the things I'm saying. So guys, we got half an hour left in the stream, and that means usually 2 more games, sometimes 3. If I hang a piece or something like I did earlier, I can't explain it. You know, I had a very good rest yesterday, and I'm pretty fresh. But playing strange positions that you're not accustomed to is difficult. You know, and you're not used to positions like in the center game. I was in a totally new position I never played before in my life, and decided to go with it. You know, with e5. I mean, I could have just played like a normal move, but when you find yourself in positions you've never played before, strange things tend to happen. And this one too. I mean, I'm not really a King's Gambit player, so I like to have fun here, experimenting with it here on the stream, but I was on my own. I don't think that the way I played it was great. Probably okay to start with, but then I think we started going wrong around the time when I played a4. After g5, actually knight d2. If we go back to like queen b5, knight d2, this is a mistake. You know, if I had to do over again, I would just play queen b3. Queen b3, knight, queen d3, knight d2. White has a good game. So that's where we started screwing it up, trying to be fancy with knight d2, just not necessary. We're up a clear exchange here. Black has a tiny bit of compensation with this mobile pawn majority on the king's side, but I'm not really that worried about it. So getting fancy with knight d2. I mean, I should have learned my lesson when I hung a piece in the other game, that chess is fun and I love tactics, but one realization I've come to is that like you have to just accept the fact that like 90% of games are kind of boring, and you try to make it interesting, but sometimes you just can't force it. You just have to accept that a large chunk of chess games are necessarily going to be kind of technical and boring. Now here I'm strongly tempted to play like c4, c5. So we'll go with our instinct. Because black is threatening g4 if I move my rook away from h1. So I want to slow it down if I can on the king side. Meanwhile, advancing my queen side. And d5 is interesting. But I really want to get in b4 and get the whole unit moving together. Now b6 I didn't expect. He could go to the b file though. I also have h4 here, taking out his structure. Maybe this is not a bad idea. Disabling the smooth pawn structure on the king side. That if I break that up, I think black's king side is done for. So we're very lucky there against you, Azim Sutari, because we got away with a couple bad moves. Piece of sheet. We're white again. White every game. That's normal. Those of you guys who don't know what's going on, I think I'm being trolled by the viewers here. I'll start in a minute. I've got misbehavior in the chat room. What's this? Alright, well I think that Jeroen can handle the chat room, so we're going to try e4 again. Your challenge got pushed to the back earlier, Corrupt Bishop. Corrupt Bishop, your filthy bishop. You got pushed down. And Piece of Sheet is playing the St. George as well. Lord Alamos said it was a random color challenge. Corrupt bishop. I don't really appreciate the autism comment. If we could like refrain from that, please. So piece of sheet borrowed my Basman. He borrowed my Basman idea with h6. Well, excuse me, fine by me. So I don't approve of anybody like making fun of those who suffer from disabilities. So you'll get timed out if you go there. We will liberally time out all the bad dudes. So e6 now is basically a kind of St. George with h6 early. And I don't think I have to do anything special here. I like the normal plan of queen e2. I'm not really caring too much about h6. So piece of sheet just wants to play a hippo, I guess a kind of hippo. I'm thinking like, what would Steinitz do? You know, the temptation to play like f4 here is pretty strong. I think, given the situation with the waste of time of h6 and a6, I don't normally opt for f4 in this kind of formation, but for example, f5 could be very disruptive at some point, particularly if black plays g6. Mixing your poker and chess. Yeah, well, I mean, the concept of bluffing, like, is in everything. I mean, it's not just poker. I didn't bring it up because of poker per se. Just because it's just an existent concept in life. I can't explain how passively Harika played against Shirov, you know, and how many opportunities she passed up, playing just totally passively. Okay, she's intimidated. Shirov is a kind of legendary player, maybe, but it was really exaggerated. If you check out that game, really exaggerated, you know. How a grandmaster could play that passively and, you know, constantly like retreat. It almost seemed like ridiculous. I mean, Shirov is not exactly in the best form of his life, you know. He's struggled in the last years, so he's not an elite player at the level he was. Not somebody like, it's not like playing Magnus Carlsen or something. So bluffing, and then I thought about, you know, well, lately we thought about Tal because of the Tal Memorial, you know, and Shirov being Latvian, of course. The question whether Shirov came up, you know, someone said he was a student of Tal, but I question it, you know, I don't know, you know, how much he directly learned from Tal. It would be interesting to know, because they're just like rumors. I mean, unless you personally know him, you know, Shirov, he's not written a lot of books, and, you know, it's hard to say. It's probably in print somewhere. So we could play a kind of Sicilian here. Taking on c5 also takes away from the center, or just c3. What would Steinitz do? He might play a normal move like knight f3, I would think. Then we get into a Sicilian that does look kind of creepy for black. You've got to admit that like h6, this doesn't look like a great Sicilian for black. But the bluffing concept, the relativity to Tal, stronger players get a lot of bluffs. You know, it's the same thing as in poker, though. That you draw the analogy, weaker players are not going to get away with bluffs because, you know, they're not going to get any credibility. The stronger players are going to get away with bluffs, and they do a lot of the time. So the Shirov, the Morozevich, I mean, these players and Tal rely on bluffs a lot. No, I don't think his bluffs against Harika in round 8 of Isle of Man were that, you know, extravagant, like positional kind of bluffs. But knight c6 now. h6, man, looks like a Looks like a serious weakening. Just going to avoid the exchange of pieces here. We could also play knight f3. Actually, Kasparov talks about this. The knight on f3, you know, the retreating the knight back to f3, it's it kind of gets in the way on f3. So you see variations where the knight retreats back to f3, but it's kind of unusual. It gets in the way along the f-file. It is on the king side more, so you kind of have a tendency to want to pull it back to f3. But it does get in the way of the other action of the other pieces. Gets in the way of my queen. Gets in the way of my rook on f1 and playing f5. So although it's passive, we avoid exchanging pieces, and we keep, you know, pressure on black. Up-and-comer says Tal was positional and solid, but every now and then he would play some absolutely insane moves. Well, you know, okay, he understood fundamental. He was well trained fundamental positional chess. I wouldn't call him positional and solid. I mean, he was a pretty aggressive player, but he understood and would often play in a very sound positional style. Yeah. I mean, I think he was more aggressive than the average player, much more aggressive than the average player, and often launched into insane complications. I wouldn't define his style, you know, predominantly as being positional and solid, though. Though he certainly played like that at times. Maybe it depended on his mood, you know, at the time. Hard to say. Bishop e3. Queen on e7 really interferes with black's development here. Piece of sheet is in my mind, you know, a player who must be kind of a self-taught player. Plays sort of unorthodox. Okay, today's stream is about unusual openings, so he played an extreme version of this, but I see a pattern in Piece of Sheet's games where he kind of gets a bad position initially and then pulls it together, you know, with like good fundamental understanding. Yesterday's game, he played the opening badly, but then really started pulling it together. Now knight b4. Now this is sort of classic. White needs to open this up. Punish the lack of development in black's position. You know, I don't really care about this bishop on d3 a whole lot. It's generally not a great piece in this sort of structure. Now the recapture here could go all three different ways. Queen takes, keeps pressure on d6. Pawn takes, looks a little slow, actually, in this structure. You could play it, though. Pawn takes is definitely playable. But this is just a Sicilian where we have a pretty massive development lead. And eventually black might lose some significant square, you know, like he'll play e5 or d5 and lose some control in the center. I don't think he can develop normally. I mean, g6, bishop g7, and you just lose the d6 pawn. So the hippopotamus type of theme here is no longer on the table. Yeah, I mean, Tal played the French with black, for example. I was thinking about that, you know, while looking at the game with Shirov against Harika, because it was a winnower. And I'm thinking that, well, yeah, I mean, Tal even played the French against Fischer and many players. So, yeah, I mean, he definitely knew the difference between being white and black, for sure. He wasn't always a maniac, and people like to paint him as such. But, yeah, that's a good point, that he definitely, you know, he could play a very, very boring normal game sometimes, when he needed to, or when he just wasn't in the mood. You know, the craziest games that Tao played were games that really required a lot of energy. You know, so now is there any way to bust black here? E5 looks like the obvious try. And I think we really need to go for it. The niceties of pawn structure have to give precedence to other features of the position here. Tactics, bishop b6, threatening some sort of tricks. Bishop c5. Bishop c5 is a serious move. It's a serious move, but I'm not convinced that it's decisive. Bishop c5, queen d7. So I don't see it. You know, I really want to drive his knight away from the center. That's my main priority here. And we have some options later on. On knight d5. Black sacking a pawn here. But now, all right. Queen takes d5. Piece of sheet's idea is to win my rook on h1. But maybe that's not, you know, the right approach here. Should just play positionally with bishop c5 and trade the dark squared bishop. We'll have a French-like position where we have a strong knight on d4. Winning a pawn isn't my priority here. Just maintaining an advantage. I didn't have anything really convincing. I never have e6 because he has the bishop on c8. Now queen e6. But queen e6 allows knight d4. It seems seems a bit surprising. And that's a tempo. Now in the ending after queen g6, black might be able to survive. Said he played queen g4. But here, I think prefer to opt for not letting black castle with queen a3. Really impressive defense by black. This pawn is now the minimum. We can win that. Now he can castle. It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive defense. I don't really have a way to break through e6. I don't really like e6, I think. Actually, queen d6. Not that convincing either. Black's ready to play rook d8 here, perhaps. Man, I don't know. I don't have that much here. Black's defended like a genius. e6 takes, knight takes e6. It's a pity to to let him actually get away with this position. Pretty impressive, and he's not even down more than a pawn here. I think they must be renovating an apartment in the next building, and I've just been doing it like sporadically over the last like 3 years. It just started today. Knight takes e6. What is he thinking about here? What is disliked about e6? Well, the heavy piece ending, you know. I mean, this is very, very difficult to win, man. I mean, Black's drawing chances are probably much, much better than his chances of losing in this kind of heavy piece ending. And Black was like busted completely. Now he finds this move. Which I don't really know. I don't mind too much, you know. You want to keep that extra pawn. Rook on the 7th. Rook to e6. Wow, he's ahead of me on time. $1,700, man. I mean, you play some really good games sometimes, but you seem to have problems in the opening. But practically speaking, piece of sheet. I don't know. I had the feeling he's somebody else who we played with here before. Look at this move. Rook d8. Now I've got a problem. Alright, we're winning a pawn. But then he's winning it back. It's going to be kind of murky. Thought this would be the next to last game, but wow, he didn't play that move. Strange lapse from piece of sheet there. I thought queen e2 was the whole idea. Played fantastically up until that point, but unless it's some sort of calculated idea to get attacking chances, I'm not really sure. b4 freezes my whole queenside structure, so it's pretty annoying. Pretty annoying move. And then he trades, but this ending is close. This queenside 3, though, just too powerful. Maybe I go to the 7th now. He's going to get some counterplay no matter what I do. I mean, there's always this. Although here I could play king c1. I'm not sure it really matters. I'm going to need to play this move eventually anyway. Wow. Okay. So rook d2 was absolutely the best chance there. Still he's in the game though. Play this move. Hanging on, man. This is really weird. c4 was actually a mouse slip. I meant to play c3. Why would you lose on time now? That's weird. So, anyway, I mean, this is just a mouse slip. I have to play c3 here. After c4, I guess black is better, but this is a mouse slip. Last game, King Wiki. Interesting game piece of sheet. Played pretty good for a 1700 on lichess. That's like a 1400 or something. A lot of people claim. I don't think so. I think there's probably like maximum 200 points between like FIDE and lichess ratings. All right, King Wiki on white. Are you also claiming that you didn't challenge me with black? King e7 just wins for black. No, it doesn't just win for black because I can sack my queen. I take his rook. You know, I mean, he has to prove a win there. Yeah, it's probably winning, but I have 2 pawns and a rook for a queen, so I guess it's technically winning, yeah. But it would still be some work for black to do. He has to prove a win with the queen against rook. It's not just resigns. I mean, I can play a few more moves. But in my defense, it was absolute mouse slip with c4. I would never play c4 in that position. The point is to undermine his pawn with c3. So color was random. Yeah, I'm sure. Everybody was random today. Is it like April Fool's Day? King Wiki played very early bishop g7. Kind of unusual move order here. Knight takes d4. No, actually, the d6 is unusual because most people who play the accelerated dragon, you know, don't want to go into a normal dragon. There's nothing wrong with it per se, though. Guys, last game for today. It's actually, time is up, but Knight b5. It looks like d6 is too weak. And I also have bishop f4, and I'm not sure you've got any really good defense. But last game, yeah, piece of sheet plays a strange brand of chess. He defended very well, very quickly, the whole game from a very, very ugly position, and managed to reach an ending that's almost drawn, maybe drawn with good technique, which is, I think, really impressive. Playing faster than me the whole game. That's pretty strong, you know, that's pretty strong. And he plays well with a ridiculous opening, you know, which is the theme of today, so I don't mind. Don't do it in simuls, though. Don't play the Basman against me in a simul, please. If you guys want to do it. I don't mind in the opening. The point of today is unusual openings, but please don't play that stuff in simuls. Try to get the most out of it if we play in a simul or something. Knight takes d6 check. Yeah, my plan was to against this guy in a blitz game. I would resign in a long game, but you know, maybe I could survive the queen and rook ending against some players who don't have good technique. Now what? Bishop f4. Bishop f4 looks pretty strong, supporting my knight. King would keep playing king f8 rather than say king e7. Now b5. I'm thinking this move just kind of weakens black's position a little bit since bishop b7 isn't really available. Maybe rook a7? Is that an idea? Maybe in this particular position not good tactically. Interesting though. It could actually. I'm just concerned about knight takes f7. That makes, yeah, rook a7, knight takes f7. Not sure that you've got an answer for that. A discovery on the b8 knight. So I don't really see a positive. Maybe b4. b4 is the idea. I mean, my knight goes to a4, and that seems good for white. You know, now we can play a number of moves. a3, just preventing b4. Looks solid. Karpovian. Nine games with white, if random, is 0.2% chance. Yeah, I don't think that this is random. I think that somebody decided to troll me today, but I don't know who's behind it and how could they have coordinated it, you know? It was, I don't know if it was the US government, private hackers, or the Russians. We're not really sure. But this is definitely a blunder, no matter who's responsible for it. Knight takes f7 is pretty ugly. So last game for today, guys. Sadly, I've got to leave you. But we lost at least one today. We had some scary games. And it was fun. I always lose games in these weird openings. Played the center game, lost against Lord Alamo with a piece drop. In an interesting position, though. Sadly, I'm sorry that I dropped the piece there because we were creating new theory in the center game, I think, in that position. Knight takes d8, losing the queen. All right, guys, that's it. We're going to wrap it up for today. I've got a lot of stuff to do today, so maybe tomorrow I'm going to upload my review of Sunday's Simul, last Sunday's Simul. So stay tuned for that, and we've got streams tomorrow and Friday morning. Hopefully this joke with the white pieces will end. I'm going to talk to Thibault and see what's up. Thanks, guys, for listening to me, guys, and giving me all white today. Nice troll joke. Well, how did you coordinate that? You were sending private messages to everybody? Pretty tricky. A lot of fun, though. Thanks for doing that. That was funny. I knew there was something up, but I wasn't sure how it was coordinated. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. with regular Blitz and Classical stream. Thanks to Jeroen for the awesome troll there. I was white 9 games in a row. Funny. You guys didn't get to see any of my great preparation with black. Maybe next week I'm going to be black every game. I don't want to give Jeroen any ideas, but that might be the plan. So again, thanks. Check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Thanks for your donations. If you haven't, please consider donating $5 or $10 to the stream and for my YouTube channel to keep it up and running. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. And Sunday is a Simul. Sunday is my simul at 6:30 p.m. CEST. So very funny, Jeroen. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.